Good morning, everyone. We're exploring the rich and complicated history of Christianity and studying the Bible in context. We identify bad theology and misconceptions about God, the Bible, about hell, and following Jesus' teachings. And if you find this video helpful, please let us know in the comment section below. We'd love to hear your thoughts and your experiences. We are continuing our series Straight Out of Context, Bible verses that get pulled out of context and are used for inappropriate reasons. And today's Bible verse that we're going to look at is 1 Corinthians 10:13. Quickly, who's got it memorized? You can say it off the top of their head. Who's Googling it right now? Just kidding. All right, let's take a look at this. Okay, here's today's questions. When it's more than we can handle, does God really give us a way out? And how to comfort people like Jesus. How do we do that? How do we comfort people like Jesus? And don't do this with Bible verses. Don't do that with any of these verses that I'm telling you about taking straight out of context. Misapplying them and misusing them. Oftentimes, I think we cause more damage than good when we start quoting these verses to people inappropriately. All right, I called this section, You Can Handle This. There you go. There's your coffee mug. How many of you people, anybody have one of these? Right? God will never give you something you can't handle. How many people have heard this? How many people have been told this? Okay, right? And of course, here's my favorite. God will never give you anything you can't handle, so don't stress. Really? Don't stress? Don't be a human being? Don't experience human emotions? The church has a hard time with human emotions, especially the negative ones. And we tend to just trust and obey, be on your way, get out of here, take your nasty human emotions with you, all those negative things that you're feeling, we don't like those around here, right? We would prefer if you just show up every Sunday morning and pretend to be happy. That's so much better. But stress is a part of life. And rather than telling people don't stress, we need to teach them how to handle their stress and how to handle it in appropriate ways. Believe me, I've been to a lot of churches, served at a lot of different church, on a lot of different church boards, a lot of different church staff and things like that. There are a lot of people handling stress inappropriately. There's a lot of hidden, smokers. There's a lot of hidden drinkers. There's a lot of hidden drug addicts, okay? Because this is how they're handling their stress, because if they go to the church and say, I'm so stressed out, well, God won't give you more than you can handle. Now, out you go. Go on. Off. Okay? Uh-oh. It's Youth Group Betty. I love Youth Group Betty. She's so nice. She's always got that happy, positive attitude. Oh, what's the side eye for, Betty? I love that verse. Oh, yeah. Well, everybody, it's very, yeah, okay, right? It's so inspirational. Hashtag feeling inspired. Okay, yeah, okay. A lot of people love that verse, and I know some people are kind of, a little critical. They're like, oh, RC, what's wrong with inspiring a few people? Are you against inspiring people? You don't want people to feel inspired? It's not that I don't want you to feel inspired. I just don't want you to use the verse incorrectly. Okay? I think there's lots of inspirational verses in the Bible. There's enough of them that we don't have to take one out of context. And we especially don't have to twist it as much as we've twisted this one and applied it incorrectly. So first off, let me tell you, here's what I have a problem when we use this verse in the way that it's being used. It suggests that people should never get overwhelmed. Can you imagine that? That if you get overwhelmed, there must be something wrong with you spiritually? It suggests that you shouldn't do that. And I think that's ridiculous. I think being overwhelmed is part of the natural human experience. And probably at this point, I probably should have thrown up Charles or Mabel, who said, well, natural human experience, that's the sinful side. No. That's just part of life. And I kind of get tired of the church denying that life is messy, that life can be difficult. And rather than working through it, they just deny it. But see, people will get overwhelmed. They kind of suggest in this verse that people will never have their spirit crushed, never get brokenhearted, never be hurt emotionally or psychologically. And that's just not true. Yes. Oh my God. Okay. So like if you just claim this from Jesus, if you just had more Jesus, if you just trusted Jesus, he's never going to give you more than you can handle. Oh my God. Have you heard Group 1 Crew? How many people have heard Group 1 Crew? Anybody out there? Right? Yeah, it's because you're all old. That's why. Okay, right? If you were young like me, you'd know who Group 1 Crew is. All right? So I'm so inspired. Here's some lyrics to one of their songs. Let me give you some lyrics to one of their songs. I won't give you more than you can take. And I might let you bend, but I won't let you break. And no, I'll never let you go. Don't you forget what he said. Wow. What insipid, uninspired verses that. That's just totally wrong. Again, we're feeding this to our young people. We're teaching this to them in their songs and feeding it to people over and over again, telling them, yeah, don't worry. Nothing bad's really ever going to happen to you. You might feel uncomfortable a little bit. You might bend, but you will never break. And that's just not true. Human beings break. Good Christians break. I've seen people with deep spiritual lives and strong connections to God, and they've broken. I think about people in our own congregation who have suffered long-term illnesses and the daily pain and suffering that they go through. And the last thing I want to look at them and say, well, God will never give you more than you can handle. And they're like, you aren't walking in my shoes. You don't know what I go through on a daily basis. You don't know how forsaken I feel right now at this very moment. People do break. That's reality. And I don't care if you're walking with Jesus or not walking with Jesus. People break. That's why God is the God of the brokenhearted. See, take a look at Psalms 147, verses 2 and 3. The Lord builds up Jerusalem. He gathers the exiles of Israel. He heals the brokenhearted, and he binds up their wounds. Are you telling me that the multiple times that Israel was destroyed, that the people of Israel, many of them killed, many of them sent off to foreign countries, those who were dispersed around the world were not brokenhearted? Do you think their spiritual leaders and looked at them and go, well, God won't really give us more than we can handle. Yes, your family was slaughtered. You're all alone now, but you can handle it. That's okay. Put on a happy face. Think positive. Do you think God gave them? No, that's not what the message of the prophets. The message of the prophets is God is going to restore it. God is going to rebuild it. He's going to gather you together again. And he's going to bind up your wounds. He's going to heal your broken heart. See, here's the thing. It's not that you will never break. It's that when you do, God will heal you. God is not telling you that you're never going to go through hard times that are going to stress you out. He's telling you, I will walk through them with you. I take you through the hard times. I'm right there with you. And when you get to the other side, I will heal you. That's what God is telling us. Not that, well, I'll never give you more than you can handle. That's not what he's telling us. By suggesting that people should not or cannot break can bring guilt and shame when they do. There are a lot of people who have turned to the church, turned to pastors, and they're just saying, I'm stressed out, I'm broken, I'm grieving, I'm hurting. My life has been destroyed, only to be dismissed in their pastoral counseling session. Oh, well, God wouldn't give you more than you can handle. I don't know why you're stressed out. Trust and obey, be on your way. And we give them just this false hope, this dismissive attitude about what they're struggling with. The church, unfortunately, is notorious for being the worst at mental health care. You're depressed? Well, there's a problem with your faith. Just trust in Jesus and you'll be happy. You're stressed out? Well, just trust in Jesus. You just need more Jesus. That's all you need. Your husband's abusing you. He's physically and sexually abusing you, physically and sexually abusing the kids. Well, just trust and obey. He won't give you more than you can handle. You can go back to your abusive husband and you can be Christ to him and be a witness within the home. And he'll change and turn to God. You just have to understand that God would never give you a situation you couldn't handle. That was the actual advice that John MacArthur gave to a woman whose husband was physically and sexually abusing her and the children. And when she finally said, that's bad advice, and called the cops, he publicly shamed her. That's why I don't like this verse being used incorrectly. Because it just suggests that if you're having any kind of problems, and if you actually admit to them, well, you're not following the Bible. You're not following Jesus. What's wrong with the verse? Well, second, the phrase is often used as a platitude that is both meaningless and helps us avoid uncomfortable feelings or actions. Nobody likes dealing with those uncomfortable feelings. They're hard to work with. Right? And people who are exceptionally empathic, we feel them along with you. So oftentimes somebody comes up to you and they're telling you these horrible things. You have a husband who's watching their wife go through cancer, long-term cancer. Parents who are watching their children go through horrible, devastating childhood diseases that are going to take that child's life. And we're like, I don't know what to say. So we just give them this little meaningless platitude. Well, God won't give you more than you can handle. You can get through this. It's okay. Okay, I've done my part. I feel better. I'm out. And we just give them this little meaningless phrase so that we can avoid the hard work of grieving with them. We can avoid the hard work of walking with them through this horrible journey that they have to go through. And we skip out and go our own merry little way. When we feel uncomfortable around someone's grief, we use this as an offer of comfort, and then we exit. It's about as meaningless as, oh, well, I'll pray for you. And then off we go. I don't think that we understand that we are called upon to be the hands and voice of Jesus in this world today. And that Jesus would have grieved with them. When Lazarus died, Jesus wept. Jesus stayed with us in those uncomfortable feelings. And you say, well, why isn't he doing it now in the world? He is, through us, if we are obedient and following and being his disciples. We say this is a way of shifting our responsibility to carry one another's burdens to the grievings of another or God. So what we do is we're like, oh, well, I see you're in pain. I see you're broken. I see you're grieving. God won't give you more than you can handle. So now it's all on your shoulders. Go out there and handle it. Stop complaining. Stop whining. Stop crying. Go out there and handle it. I told you, God can't give you more than you can handle. Or, well, now it's all God's responsibility. He'll come by and he'll take those burdens off your shoulder. And the reality is, it's us. They're brothers and sisters in Christ. It's us, their spiritual community, who are responsible to help them carry that burden. But yet we just shift the responsibility off to them. Galatians 6:2, carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. What's the law of Christ? Love one another. What's the law of Christ? Love your neighbor as yourself. That's the law of Christ. We, as their spiritual community, as their spiritual brothers and sisters, those of us who have joined together and said, we are going to form together as one community and be here, we have a responsibility to carry each other's burdens. And that burden is not their there's a difference between carrying their responsibility and carrying their burden. The burden is something they can't handle. And so when those times come along, we have a responsibility to help them get through it. That's if we're going to fulfill the law of Christ. You want to be disobedient, that's fine. Just tell them, God won't give you more than you can handle, and be on your way in disobedience. When we are truly engaged in a loving community, then we must be willing to help others process their grief. That's a tough one. We don't like feeling those negative emotions. We don't like being empathic. It's hard. But we need to be part of that process. And trust me, the really skilled people at this, those who end up becoming counselors and those that people turn to in crisis, they share that burden, but they have to process that grief too. And it can be very, very difficult on them. And so those are very special, wonderful people within the church. They need to be honored for what they do. We have people like that in our church. That when the tough times come, people go to them for counsel, go to them for comfort. And they take on the grief of others and they help them process through that. But realize that pays a toll. They pay a toll for that. They have to process through those feelings too. But that's the thing. It's a process. It's a process. We also have an obligation to act when we are able. We have an obligation to act when we are able. This person has no food at home. Well, God wouldn't give you more than you can handle. This is a great time to start your new diet. No. If you're able to act, if you have the ability, you have the obligation. See, the more that God blesses you, the more responsibility you have to take care of those without. That's why I'm a little critical of, pastors, living in multi-million-dollar mansions and doing nothing to help the poor. If I'm in a congregation and I see that somebody needs some food, I'm either going to give them, if I'm able, my bank account says I can, I'm going to hand them some money, or I'm going to take them out to buy some food, hand them a shopping, a card to go buy some food or something. Bring them some food. Do something. If you are able to do it, do something. Even if it's only a little bit, do something. Because that helps lift the burden off their shoulders. And believe me, that is so much more than, well, God wouldn't give you anything you can't handle. See you later. Be warm, be fed. What's wrong with this verse? Well, finally, this verse isn't actually in the Bible. What? But it's on coffee mugs. I bought a t-shirt that says that. There's a bumper sticker on my car. I have this really nice sort of stained glass little thing that I hang in my window, and it says that. God won't give you more than you can handle. It's got to be in the Bible. It's there. Isn't it in the Bible? Not really. Did you know this verse isn't in the Bible? It's a bad paraphrase of another verse. It's a misused paraphrase. Let me point you to the verse that they're trying to do. 1 Corinthians 10:13. This is the actual verse that they're paraphrasing incorrectly. No temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man. When we say man, we're talking about everybody. What a sexist translation this is. Okay? No temptation has overtaken you that is not common to humankind. God is faithful, and he will not let you be tempted beyond your ability. He will not let you be tempted beyond your ability. But with the temptation, he will also provide the way of escape that you may be able to endure it. So this is not talking about just life situations. This is not talking about everyday living and the pressures and the burdens that come through life. This is talking specifically about temptations. That's a big difference, isn't it? That's a big difference between my child has cancer and he's going to die, and I'm being tempted to do something. You see the big difference between those two? That's a bad paraphrase. But not only that, see, not only is it about temptations and not stressful situations and catastrophes, it's also about one specific temptation, not just all temptations in general. See, I've heard people, and I've heard preachers preach sermons about, well, any temptation that comes your way. And that's not true. This particular verse applies to one temptation specifically. What? Yeah. It's the temptation to idolatry. To worship a god other than God. See, when you put this back into context, Paul is writing to the Corinthians. He's writing to the church at Corinth. He's writing to the Corinthians. Now, for those of you who don't remember, when I talked about this before, Corinth was a party town. Woo! It was the Vegas of its time. It's the place where you went. You went and had a good time in Corinth. In fact, in the ancient world, there's a phrase about, going out there and Corinthicizing. You're carousing, you're having a good time. This place was full of temples, and when you're full of temples, you're full of prostitutes. Because they practiced temple prostitution. That was a fundraising way, right? The temple needs to, raise funds, keep the columns up and things like that, so they practiced sacred temple prostitution. So if you needed to go out and have a really good time, Corinth was the place to go. Okay? It was a fun place. It's like, let's all go to Corinth. Woo! Right? Spring break in Corinth. Woo! Okay? That's the kind of thing we're talking about. It's a party town. And it has lots of temples. But see, along with that, as I've explained before, when we come to this issue about eating meat and all that kind of stuff, the temples were also a place that your particular guild went to. If you were some kind of craftsman, right? If you were, say, a bricklayer, or you made some kind of thing, you made casks, or you were, like, say, you were a leather worker or something like that, you belonged to a certain guild. Your guild would be associated with a certain deity. That deity, was associated with a certain temple. And your guild would go, and to bring you in, like you were joining a union, they would take you through a religious ceremony at the temple. So here you have these good Christians who would sometimes have to go to the temple and participate in these religious ceremonies, and that was a big issue because now we're practicing idolatry. They would hold their dinners there in honor of this god. That was considered idolatrous because you're worshiping a god through this feast that you're having at the temple. And so here, over and over again, here you have these people who have converted to Christianity, and they're getting caught up because religion and civics were mixed together. They weren't separate. They were mixed together. So almost everything you did revolved around the deity from that temple and getting involved into that temple, into the temple life there. Christians were under great pressure to worship at temples as part of their civic duty. And so he's writing to them, yes, there is this temptation for you. Life would be easier. I'll just go there, I'll eat the meal, and I'll leave, and there'll be no big deal. Yes, okay, so I got to go to this big religious ceremony at the temple, right, because we're initiating a new member into the Leather Workers Guild. Okay, so there was this big temptation just to take the easy route. Because if you didn't do these things, you might be kicked out of the guild. You might lose your sort of profession. And so here's this huge temptation. They were under great pressure, under great temptation to go to these temples and to worship. And Paul's telling you, yeah, everybody's experienced situations like this where you have to make a choice. Be faithful to God, or just take the easy path and worship many gods. That temptation is common to all of humankind, but there is a way out. God will provide you a way out. So that's what Paul is writing about here. Paul is writing that temptation, everybody's experienced it, you have to make a choice. God will provide you a way out of that temptation. Oh. Well, that's very different. Paul uses examples all throughout chapter 10 from Israel's history when they gave in to idolatry to warn the Corinthians. So if you read the whole chapter, it's like, okay, well, the ancient Israelites did this, and they did this, and they did this, turned out really bad. You don't want to do those kind of things. So don't you do it either. The context of this verse is about avoiding the temptation of idolatry. That's what it's all about. Boom, done. Well, what about other temptations? It's not about other temptations. Well, what about having more than you can handle? It's not even about that. We just paraphrased it to that and misused it. Duh. What are you people doing? Stop it. Yeah, but you can't sell a coffee mug that says, God will not allow you to go to a temple and worship the deity of brick making if you don't want to. I mean, would you buy one of those to put on your car, a little bumper sticker? God will not allow you to worship the goddess of brick making if you don't want to. He'll provide a way out. Probably not. Okay, I don't even think you can sell it to brick makers. This is not about being able to overcome tough situations. It has nothing to do with that whatsoever. One specific tough situation, but not all tough situations. So having heard that, what should we do? Well, stop saying it. Stop saying this as a way to avoid the hard work of bearing one another's burdens. Somebody comes up to you and they're grieving and they're hurting. Even if you don't know what to say, sit with them. Give them a hug, hold their hand, or just be there. Just allow them to grieve and share your emotional and your psychological support. Just your physical being allows them to help process through this. Just knowing that somebody else is there and that they felt safe enough to come to you and you didn't flee. Just be there with them, and that's all you can do. You don't have to say anything. But stop saying this as a way to do your escape route. Well, God wouldn't give you more than you can handle. Praying for you, out. Stop it. We have this obligation to share one another's burdens, and sometimes that means that you're going to have to feel uncomfortable things, negative emotions from other people. We must grieve with those who grieve and act to make their burdens lighter. I know this hurts. I know this hurts. You've been by your child's bedside in this hospital almost 24 hours a day, every day. I will sit here for you. You need a nap. Whatever we can do to make somebody else's burden better, lighter, we need to do it. We need to do it. Whatever's within our capability, whatever we have been blessed with as resources, we have an obligation to share. Don't avoid that. Believe me, there are a lot of people who just avoid it. Hey, thoughts and prayers for you. Oh. God won't give you more than you can handle. Don't know why you're so stressed out. It'll all work out in the end. This misused paraphrase offers a false hope. Not only that, but it makes the person who's experiencing these things feel guilty. I guess I don't have enough faith. I guess I'm not reacting appropriately. Maybe I'm, being overdramatic. Yeah, sometimes a few of you are overdramatic, but trust me, if you're overdramatic, I'll let you know. Stanton. Oh, wait, sorry, that just slipped out. I'm teasing. Okay? It suggests that Christians will never face insurmountable problems. Yes, you will. Welcome to life. We got to stop singing these songs to a bunch of youth group kids, trying to indoctrinate them into the kind of thinking that they're not going to have problems and tribulations in the world and that there aren't going to be insurmountable problems. Sometimes there will be, and they're going to have to stop, and they're going to have to ask for help. Yet Jesus told us we would have trials and tribulations. In this world, you will have trials and tribulations, is what he told us. He predicted that Jerusalem would be destroyed again, that not one stone of the temple will remain upon the other. He talked about it, and it happened. 70 AD, everything he said would happen happened. Do you think that the people who experienced the destruction of their beloved Jerusalem weren't brokenhearted? Do you think Jesus shouted down from heaven like some kind of heavenly cheerleader, hey, don't worry, you can handle it? This misused paraphrase offers Christians escapism. Christianity is big on escapism. We love escapism. Feeling depressed? Well, the joy of the Lord is your strength. Just claim the joy. Claim it. Name it and claim it. Claim it. Why aren't you claiming God's joy in your life? Here, sing the song with me. I got the joy, joy, joy down in my heart. Don't you feel better now? That there's somehow, some way to just escape all the worldly problems. That you became a Christian, and now, boom, no more worldly problems. You'll just be happy all the time. Isn't that wonderful? That's why I became a Christian. So that I could just have blessing all the time. Yeah, no. You know, one of the biggest examples of escapism, I like to point this out, is the rapture. Some really bad stuff's going to go down, but God will just scoop us all up and we're out. We're out of here. My child is dying of cancer. Well, just pray for a miracle. It's going to happen. Boom, done. Christian escapism. See, we need to start preaching Christian reality. We need to start preaching that you're going to go through some really bad stuff. You're going to have some really hard times. You're going to hurt. You're going to get broken. But God's not going to take you away from it. He's going to see you through it. And when you get to the other side, He will be the one binding your wounds. He will be the one healing your heart. He will be the one wiping away the tears. Because He's not afraid of doing the hard work of healing the grieving. Stop saying this is a way to avoid the hard work of bearing one another's burdens. We must grieve with those who grieve, act to make their burdens lighter. That's what we need to do. So throw away all your coffee cups, throw away all your little t-shirts, bumper stickers, window hangings. Okay? Do something. Do something. Do something. God promised to bind our wounds and heal the brokenhearted. He's going to see us through it all. The church is the hospital. This is where the brokenhearted come. You know, I remember probably about a good 10 years ago, had a conversation with one of our church members. I said, you know, Open Door Ministry, we're kind of like this triage church. You guys know what triage is? Triage is where you break them into 3 groups, right? They're dead. Don't need to bother with them anymore, right? This is the Walking Dead. They're going to be dead soon. Okay, these are the ones that we can treat and we can help. We're sort of like the triage church. People come here. We have a lot of broken people come here, a lot of people who have been hurt by other churches especially. We have a lot of, it's like, okay, these ones we can help, these ones we can't. And so we helped those, and we bound up their wounds and stuff like that. Once we got them healthy enough, off they went. They stopped by for a hospital visit. The people who are still here, you guys are the hospital workers. You're the ones binding up the wounds. You're the ones helping everybody and healing everybody. But the church is the hospital, and we are Jesus' hands and voice that minister healing in this world today. That's who we are. We serve a community that has been beaten down, oppressed, hurt, practically destroyed, and our community fights amongst itself. They're like, we got too many letters in our community. Let's get rid of some of these people. But our job is to carry their burdens, to be the voice and hands of Jesus, to minister healing to them, to bind their wounds, not to inflict new ones, to bind their wounds. I think too many people go to churches and the churches inflict new wounds. Oh, you're hurting over here? Here. Not enough faith. That's your problem. Oh, you're hurting? Trust and obey. Be on your way. Come on. We need to start healing and binding up these wounds. Slogans aren't enough to do it. God won't give you more than you can handle. Feeling inspired. Here, I'll buy you a t-shirt. Well, I tried to help. I bought them the t-shirt. I gave them a little journal. It says that on the front. God won't give you more than you can handle. How to be grateful in your everyday life. Here, write it here. Okay. We need to do the hard work. And slogans aren't cutting it. So let's get rid of the slogans. With that, let me close in prayer. Jesus, we just pray that you will help us to be your hands and voice in this world today, that we will not run away from the difficult situations that people are going through. We will not run away from the grief and the depression and the anxiety that people go through, but instead we will embrace them, love them, and carry their burden with them. Too often we say, oh, well, God, this is your responsibility, not mine. And yet we are your disciples. So it is our responsibility. Help us to remember that, Lord. Help us to remember that. Lord, I just pray that not only will the Holy Spirit go out to heal and to bind up the wounds and the brokenhearted, but we will, empowered by your Holy Spirit, that we will heal the brokenhearted. We just pray this in your name. Amen. So once again, if you found today's content helpful, be sure to subscribe to our channel, like and share this video, or leave us a comment. I'd love to hear your experiences about what you went through and how the church either helped or didn't help you in those situations. Did you get this verse quoted to you? Tell me about that. It helps our community here as well as our YouTube channel. We thank you so much. Before I close out with the benediction, I do want to say this. I want to strongly encourage anybody who's watching this video that if you're suffering with any kind of mental health problems, please, 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 there's so many good therapists, psychiatrists, psychologists, marriage family therapists, certified addiction counselors, so many people out there. If you're suffering with depression or anxiety, if you're suffering with suicidal thoughts, if you're suffering with addiction of some sort, please, please, please go get help. Do not be ashamed. It doesn't show a lack of faith. It means that you are leaning upon the resources that God has given us. You are leaning upon the resources that God has given us in these kind of situations. I want to talk to all the pastors out there, for any pastors who might be looking at this. Remember that our scope of practice is to be spiritual support. We don't treat addiction. So please do not try to lay hands on and cast out some demon of addiction. You need to refer that person to a professional who does deal with addiction. Remember your scope of practice, pastors. We deal with spiritual issues, not these kind of issues. So, with that, let me close with this benediction. As you leave this place, look for the opportunity to be the hands and voice to those in need. God bless you all. Go in peace. You are dismissed. Thank you.
We are one in Christ. We are one in God. We are one in unity. We are one in truth. We are one in faith.